So I know you can see us. You can also see the audience, I think.
I can, yeah.
Maybe some extra light for you, for just you can wave or they can wave and say hello, blah, blah, blah. They're in Bussum, beautiful city in the Netherlands, working for companies. Are these people, are you going to talk about something outside companies, actually? It's called the creator economy. So let's first see what it is and why you are so enthusiastic about this movement, and later on maybe come back to a question, how could these companies be hit or involved in this creator economy? If that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
And in between I can see where there are questions, so I can jump to the audience, come back to you, or do a voting. Some interaction here. So maybe explaining what the creator economy is would be a nice start.
Yeah, absolutely happy to do that. If you go on to the second slide, and just so you can kind of see this gigantic map that's going to be coming up. But just before I kind of go into that, one of the things that we have, I guess, witnessed over the last probably 5 years, but then obviously sped up during the pandemic as well, was the rise of what we call a creator. And a lot of people get confused between what is an influencer and what is a creator. How are they fundamentally different? And the first example is obviously an influencer. We're all familiar with influencers. They've been around for many, many years. We probably use them in our marketing or with our brand. And an influencer is essentially someone who builds up an audience, mostly on a social platform, through kind of curated and very stylized content. And then they advertise your products for you or your services for you. And they're very much like a paid for model or something along those lines. And the kind of people that you're reaching are just going to be their audience who kind of like their aesthetic and what they're interested in. On the flip side, we have a creator. And the creator economy is something that has risen massively, as I mentioned, in the last couple of years, but they're very different types of operators. So a creator is all about building a community as opposed to purely an audience. And they're doing it through lots of different channels, which I'll show you in a second, but they're actually not that interested in partnering with brands. They're not necessarily interested in becoming a paid for model or holding up a can of something and smiling in a photo. Instead, they're starting to actually leverage the community that they've built to build their own brands, their own businesses, and to monetize directly to their fans as opposed to via a brand and then obviously monetizing in that direction. So they are very kind of different beasts in terms of how they operate. If you flick on to the next slide now, what we're going to start to see is kind of what the creator economy looks like right now. And even this is old because it's just moving so quickly. But essentially, with the creator economy, we are looking at a number of different platforms that are coming to the fore to help creators make what they make and actually monetize the way they monetize. So we've got obviously our social platforms, your TikTok, for example, Facebook, Instagram, etc. But what we're also starting to see is new creator tools as well. So basically, really interesting platforms that allow them to make video content very easily, allow them to edit it in different ways. It could be direct-to-fan platforms such as Patreon, OnlyFans, Twitch, for example, that answer the monetization questions that potentially they have. We've also got an influx of new platforms for finance as well. So basically helping them to manage the payments between them and their fans, microtransactions, gating different levels of access. So if I'm a lower level fan, I might pay them $5 a month or something to access their content. If I'm a higher level fan, I might pay them $150 a month and I might get access to their WhatsApp or a direct conversation with them. So again, all of those different ways to manage. And then also a lot of them are starting to experiment in the Web3 world and actually starting their own loyalty schemes, also working with companies like Pietra, for example. Pietra is a white labeled manufacturing company. So I can go to Pietra and I can find a manufacturer anywhere around the world who will make me a hoodie, or who will make me a skincare range, or who will make me a beer brand. And I'm able to actually cut all of the kind of complexity out of what normally would have been there for setting up a business, and instead just create a white label over the top and then sell that to my community. So that's kind of where we're at the moment with the creator economy. So it is essentially the creation of thousands and thousands of new brands, new services that are catering to micro niches of communities, which these creators are cultivating. So they could be really into a particular gaming title, and that creator could just cultivate that community and just deliver goods and services to them. They could be really into a specific type of skincare. They could be really into a specific type of travel. But the answer to this is basically they don't need to reach everybody. It's not about more followers, more likes, more shares, going viral. It's almost the opposite. It's about making sure that people are cultivating very rich relationships and also people who are going to spend a lot of money with them, but maybe they only need 1,000 of them or 2,000 of them. And that's essentially what they're building at the moment.
When did this creative economy started? How many years ago? It's old, is it new?
I think, to be honest, it probably started close to about 10 years ago. So we started to see, for example, some YouTubers starting their own brands or businesses. So people like Logan Paul, whether you like him or you hate him, he started a clothing brand, and then he started a fan loyalty platform. And then he started selling content direct to his fans. And then obviously there was Patreon. And Patreon has been around for a really, really long time, regardless of whether or not we knew about it. And so again, that idea of actually paying a subscription amount to access people's content or surprise music or something along those lines, or WhatsApp chats that you can have with them privately, that's been there for a while. But during the pandemic, obviously we had a huge number of people who had no way to ply their business. So whether they were musicians or whether they were makeup artists or anything along those lines, they had no way to make money. They had no way to work. And so many of them turned to this idea of the creator economy and started trying to figure out, what platforms can I use to maybe reach new audiences? How can I grow a small audience that maybe I can sell to? How do I create content for them? How do I charge for my services or my time? And that just exploded over the course of 2020, 2021, and obviously where we are now, with lots and lots of new money coming into the space, huge amount of venture capital, and then people looking at trying to build lots of different ecosystems of platforms and products that could answer the needs of these new creators.
So I'm getting excited by what you're saying. So there's new businesses all around having fans.
Yes.
Maybe you can have a vote here and see how the people here in the room, their companies. Maybe I can see hands whether your companies have fans, a fan base. Can you see how many, Zoe?
I can see a few, yes.
I see a lot of Society people believing that we have fans because these are our clients. These are our fans. But this business model is completely based on fanship, is it?
Yes, it is, absolutely. It's based on cultivating a smaller community, so not an audience. So it's not about you creating content and then just broadcasting to a passive audience. It's about building those reciprocal relationships and making people feel valued. And that's when you start to cultivate, these fandoms as well. And I think what's interesting is looking at, new ways of building portfolio products. So lots of different ways that you can charge your fans for different types of access. Lots of different ways that you can bring them a bit closer. So do you get them to help you with your product design or your service design? Do you ask them what it is that you want and then you build it for them? And I think that kind of different type of dynamic in terms of giving power to the fans or giving power to the community members to decide what it is that they want, and then the creator delivering that, is definitely something that brands can learn from, but it's hugely successful within the creator economy at the moment.
Well, fans sound good, but giving power to fans sounds a little bit scary, don't you think?
Well, it reminds me of an article written by Kevin Kelly several years ago. He already talked about the creator economy, and he talked about the idea that companies need about 1,000 true fans to make a proper business. And I even believe nowadays there are some people even telling that you only need about 100 fans. Is that true? Is that the future?
I think it depends on the business that you have. So, if you're a Fortune 500 or if you're a Unilever or something along those lines, I don't think 1,000 people are going to be enough, for people to actually buy your products and for you to make the kind of money that you want. But I think what's interesting about this is what Kevin Kelly was saying is actually you could build a sustainable small business online with 1,000 true fans. And all you need to do is focus your time and energy on making them feel valued, making them happy, delivering the products and services that they need. And that should give you more than enough, to be able to make a living each year. And now, obviously, we're saying that could go down to 100 true fans, depending on the portfolio of different subscription models or different products and services that you give them. But I think where we've been over the last 15 years in the social media world is we have been all about more. So as I said, more followers, more reach. Can we go viral? How do we reach as many eyeballs as possible? How many fans could I possibly have? How many followers could I possibly have? And I don't think we've necessarily understood that huge numbers of followers or huge numbers of fans don't necessarily equal monetary value. yes, they equal eyeballs, but that's not necessarily what we're looking for. And instead, now we're saying, well, maybe if you went niche, maybe if you went smaller, and you found a way to cultivate really strong relationships and kind of products and services with 1,000 people, that could be a hell of a lot more valuable than if you were to go to the mass.
And if you're talking about niche, if you're talking about creating a fandom, how does the whole idea of Web3, the decentralization idea, help with this?
I think when we look at Web3, Web3 is very complex at the moment. I think there are a lot of scams. There are a lot of bad taste in people's mouths at the moment, especially with the crypto economy kind of crashing right now. But I think instead of looking at it as we have looked at it in the last 2 years, which is how do I buy an NFT and make loads of money and use an NFT as an investment vehicle? Instead, what we need to do is focus more on what Shopify are doing, for example, and what other people are starting to do. So there's a great article that came out last week from one of the Web3 leaders at Shopify, and he was talking about the future of token-gated commerce. And he was talking about the complexity of token-gated commerce without NFTs. So, for example, how do we start to reward people who have got quite complex point systems on loyalty schemes, when they turn up to a real-world event? How do we start